Gurmila Mahagut Jean, and we'll begin by inviting Paddy Docherty back onto the stage. And during the dinner he told me he wouldn't come up unless Angela'd come up and sit down later. Come on along, Angela. Paddy Docherty agus a Van Kayla Angle. I think now we were as far as 1959 when we broke for dinner. A dinner that was excellent, as was the entertainment at half-time. Paddy, I think you can stand. It was a good dinner and you should be well fortified by now.
I'll mark you very close.
He says he'll mark me very close to the second half. We have left 1959 and we're now on to 1960, a second Ulster medal for Paddy Docherty. A meeting with Offaly in the All-Ireland semi-final. It ended in a draw and Paddy scored a goal in 7 that day. On to the replay, Down won the replay, and 'twas then on for the big stakes for the first time ever for the Morden County against the reigning All-Ireland champions Kerry. And what a day that was for football. A very well prepared Down team, setting trends with tracksuits and all of that, and two of the architects of the famous victory they had over Kerry that day, they're here tonight, Tádar Haven, Aloyva Clay, Morris Hayes and Barney Carr. If you'd stand up there and let people see you. Down and football in general owe a lot to those people, and it's very fitting that they're sitting at table number 1 with the Kerry man who happens to be the president of the GA at the moment, Sean Kelly, you know, Sean O'Callaghan. Neither I nor anyone that was there in 1960 will forget the great scenes of celebration. The crowd onto the pitch, the getting of the Sam Maguire Cup, coming home to Down and all of that. And already tonight we've mentioned some of the people who took part in that history. Agile goalkeeper Eddie McKay is here as well as the others mentioned. The rock-solid cornerback Pat Rice, 3 times All-Ireland winner Joe Lennon, all the way from Galway where he now lives, Patsy O'Hagan, and the very artful and skillful Brian Morgan, Táisiad Galera Láthir. If you'd stand up now and let people see you again. Paddy is telling me to mention other people. They'll all be mentioned before the night is out, and if not, we'll come back tomorrow night, Paddy. The only thing we didn't bring is a referee. As usual, for teams that win All-Ireland, they have to go back to the club scene right away. And for Paddy that year, Ballykindler to their first ever county championship final. But the luck ran out in the final, and I think it was a problem with the Mitchells. And the same hoodoo struck again in 1964. And Paddy, opposite you on those Mitchell teams in those days were your colleagues and great friends in the Down team. Kevin O'Neill, the only man that ever held you scoreless, you said that yourself tonight, and Sean O'Neill, Thon Vertica and Shohanish. Can you welcome onto the stage the only Down man on the team of the century, Sean O'Neill. Paddy, you don't mind stepping aside for 1 minute? I know Sean is not a man of a few words, but we'll have a few words with Sean. Sean, what made, in your opinion, Paddy Docherty different to most forwards that ever played the game?
Well, I think, Micheál, it has already been mentioned here tonight, Paddy was an intuitive genius. Paddy did things, and I'm sure he didn't even know himself.
Now, could you use smaller words? Neither Paddy and I would know what an intuitive genius is. Sean is a solicitor, yes.
And now, if any of you believe a Kerry man that says a thing like that, you're a bigger fool than I think you are.
Yeah, he was that sort of a genius you mentioned.
He was.
What does that mean?
It meant really, well, I played with Paddy for years, and it was a great, great privilege, Paddy, and I say this honestly, it was a privilege to play beside a man of this ability. Paddy did things without any effort. His scoring records stand for themselves, Meath. He really was the man who pulled us out when we needed pulling out in major games. The man you looked to was Paddy Docherty, and he never let us down, never did. He was a scoring machine. From anywhere inside 40 yards, Paddy in possession of the ball was lethal. And indeed, in 1968 in particular, Paddy, I remember many times where in possession of the ball, if I was under pressure, or maybe I wasn't shooting very well, which often happened, but I knew that if I could hold the ball long enough for Paddy to get into position, then that was all I needed to do. And I would wait for Paddy, and Paddy knew exactly what I was doing. Paddy would come up and angle beside me. I'd give the ball to Paddy and straight over the bar. It was tremendous to be playing beside a player.
He was always coming. Yeah.
Pardon?
He was always coming into the right spot.
He was always there. He was always looking. Also, I'd like to mention his penalty-taking abilities. He was the greatest penalty taker that I ever saw. He stood up and took penalties which were penalty kicks of great responsibility, had to be taken. Paddy never flinched. And if I could just mention one in particular, the one he didn't take is probably more significant, was in the 1962 league final. Dublin should have beaten us by about 10 points, Meath, that day, but we managed to scrape our way through, and Kevin Musson, who's here tonight, won 2 penalties. But the second penalty that Paddy stood up to take it, Kevin was badly hurt, and there was a delay of about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Now, Paddy was over the ball, was taking the ball, and it was the last kick of the match, really.
Into the railway goal.
Into the canal end. Canal end, yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm certain. I had reason to remember it, because Paddy suddenly came across to me with the ball and he said, "Sean, you take it." He said, "I'm off it." I said, "Paddy, are you sure? Because this fella here could have put a ball in the back of the net with his eyes closed." But he said, "No, there's been too long. There's been a delay." He says, "and I'm off it." He says, "You take it." And I admired Paddy greatly for that, because he put the team ahead of himself, where he could have taken it and he might have missed it. He didn't want to risk that.
For the sake of the team.
For the sake of the team, yeah.
Sean, would you regard him as a friend always?
I regard him as a great friend.
But did that apply when the Mitchells were playing Ballykinler? Or why didn't it apply? Yeah.
Well, it did apply. We still were friends, but at the same time, when you're playing in a county final, you play for your club. Paddy was playing to beat Mitchells. I was playing to beat Ballykinler. But I could say this, that it was a great regret. It was a great regret that I was part of a team that deprived him of the county championship medal. I would love dearly for Paddy to have won it, but unfortunately, Paddy, it couldn't be at the expense of my own club. I had a duty to my club.
And there's no way you'll give back the medal, yeah?
No, I don't think so.
Sean O'Neill, as good a player as ever played for Down, nearly as good as Paddy Docherty. Gonna meet him out, good Sean O'Neill.
Not in his class, really.
I suppose, Paddy, you believed everything he said. Now, that change of penalty, now, do you remember why actually did you tell Sean take it? You were the recognised penalty taker.
I was, but I had missed a 14-yard kick just before it.
And you were afraid the touch was gone?
Well, it's better Sean missing than me missing.
Yeah. For the first time in my life, I have discovered what an intuitive genius means. Now, I heard once that your mother roared at you one time not to take a penalty.
Well, 1960 All-Ireland semi-final, we were getting awfully, we were getting beat by 3 points. She stood up in the stand, Lord of mercy, and shouted, "Don't take it, don't take it."
And did you hear her?
I heard her, but I went on and took it.
You had no manners, Paddy, in those days.
But now...
But you took it and you scored it.
But Sean could have been a wee bit generous to me. He could have given me the championship medal.
I think he intends doing it later on. Now, that was the 1960 All-Ireland over, and then after the club scene was over, On to 1961, another Ulster medal, remembering that Down didn't win their first till 1959, and here in 61 was this man and a lot of others collecting their third, a celebrated final against Armagh, and then back again to Croke Park, an All-Ireland semi-final this time, and another meeting with Kerry. Now, when this night was being planned, it was the intention of a few Kerry players to be here. And I have two letters that I'll read out, and I think they explain better than I why they're not here. I'll give this to you when I'm finished with it, Paddy. It comes from Killarney. Dear Paddy, heartiest congratulations on this wonderful and well-deserved tribute to a truly great sportsman and gentleman. As I told Sean McGee, I would dearly love to be with you on the night to join the many friends in honouring you, but unfortunately it clashes with our county final on Sunday, where I am deeply involved as a selector with the Gaels club, the first time I've given them a commitment in 10 years. I know that my neighbour Sean Kelly will represent us capably and will tell you that mention of the name Paddy Docherty anywhere in Kerry still sends a tremor through many a spine here in the kingdom. Renewed good wishes, and I hope you have a really memorable night. Le gach da ghi Tom Long. Agus tá ceann a bháin eile a tháinig ó Kerry. Listening to Sean O'Neill on the radio the other day brought back to mind that magnificent Down team, without any doubt the finest team that I ever saw play football. That dynamic half-forward line of Sean O'Neill, James McCartan and Paddy Docherty is unsurpassed. I played in 5 senior All-Ireland finals, and Paddy was the finest left half-forward of them all. Paddy's anticipation, speed and deadly accuracy were a joy to behold, except for the way he beat me all ends up every time I marked him. I marked him 3 times, and in those 180 minutes it was all football, and not a bit of acrimony. A gentleman like Paddy is rare, and he richly deserves this special night. Paddy, I had planned to be there, but under medical orders I'm not allowed travel, and I'm really disappointed on that. I hope it will be a great occasion. Good luck to you and your family, Paddy, and to all from that great Down team who are in attendance. Sean Murphy, Trawley Kunda Kerry. Anyway, it was a second victory over Kerry by Down in the semi-final, on then to the All-Ireland final. Offaly again, the biggest crowd that ever assembled for a sports meeting ever in Ireland, over 90,000 people, and it finished with a wonderful win for Down, 2 in a row, and this man here stepped up to accept the Sam Maguire Cup, and what an honour that is, seeing that since it was first presented in 1928, only 70 individuals had that honour. From 1928 to 2003, when Peter Canavan did it, this man is one of a unique bunch of 70 people. Now, I remember, Paddy, a lot about the game and everything like that. One thing I've no recollection of, the speech that you as captain made. Could you enlighten me a little bit? Yeah. In what language was it delivered to you?
Well, I was sitting beside our chairman, George Tilney, and George was saying a few words in Irish to me. And I says to George, we're only after winning All Ireland. I'm only a bricklayer. I'm not fit to say that. So I got up and I just said, thanks awfully, and away I went.
And that was it, yes.
That was it, yes. But now, Willie Nolan.
Willie?
Willie, I had a letter from Willie there.
Willie Nolan, yeah.
Willie was captain of Offaly, and
yeah.
He said to me when I was going up the steps, he give me that ball, Paddy. I says, certainly if you find Paddy with someone's, you can have the ball. So Willie got the ball itself. I thought of Paddy having the tears in his eyes, We had lifted Sam McGuire twice.
So you didn't mind parting with the football?
I didn't mind.
And you had 3 great matches. That was a good Offaly team.
It was every bit as good as us, only we had the wee bit of luck.
Yeah.
Maybe we had a slightly better forward line than Offaly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, it must have, Paddy, given you great pleasure that there was another Ballykindler man on the team. Wasn't John Smith on the team as well?
John was on. John was a good half-back and deserved to get an All-Ireland medal. Played a lot of football for Ballykindler, and I have no doubt that John deserved his medal very much.
And 'twas special to you to have another Ballykindler man on with you.
Well, it was in the parish of Ballykindler. I think we had, Jarlath got 2 medals. Eddie McKay got 2, that was 4. Jerry McCashin got 1, was 5. John Smith got 1, was 6. And I got 3, was 9. Wasn't too bad for a small parish.
For a parish with him, not bad. Certainly wasn't bad for any parish, big or small. Now, you had another great friend from Ballykindler in those days. We've a message from a man called Paddy Todd, and that'll be given to you later in the night. I'm sure you remember Paddy as well. Now, those games with Offaly's, 2 in the semi-final and 1 in the final the following year, it led to great friendships between Offaly and Down, and that's instanced by the presence here tonight of a man called Greg Hughes. Tá Greg Hughes in Art Aigan and Chin. But Paddy, the Offaly man who the toughest job of all was the man that was destined to mark you. His name is Phil Riley. And would you believe that Phil was to be gone away on a golfing holiday this week? But once he heard that the night was finally fixed for tonight, he said golf can be played any time. It's not always you'll get a chance to meet Paddy Docherty again. Could we welcome onto the stage Phil Riley of Offaly, who marked Paddy Docherty. There he is, yes. And every time you go down to Tullamore, you'll meet Phil Riley in Tullamore. He'll be helping someone. His son played for Offaly as well. And there's steps over there, Phil. In those days, he'd have jumped up on the stage, wouldn't he? Phil Riley all the way from Offaly. Could you move in there, Phil, and tell us a little bit about the problem?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. At it again. Look at that. At it again, the elbow. Yeah. No wonder I couldn't play him.
Now,
Sorry,
was it in it? Yes?
Before I go ahead, I met Bosco McDermott today. Bosco Galway.
Yes.
And he sends his regards to you, Paddy. Okay? No, go ahead.
Yeah, now, before the game, you knew you'd be marking your man. How many hours sleep had you in the week before the match?
Very little. Yeah. Very little, very little, very little. But I say something, Michal. When I came across Paddy first, he was slim, he was trim, and I got hard to play on him. Now he's up what he has.
Yeah.
I might have been able to keep out him now if he was like that, but I wasn't at that time.
And I noticed that both of you are pioneers. Yeah.
We were, yeah, good.
Now,
and you are too, Michal.
now, to try and mark him, had you a plan to mark him or planned?
You couldn't mark him.
You couldn't?
No.
Why couldn't you?
He was too good.
Yeah.
He was too good for me.
That's
that's it.
a very simple answer.
Yeah.
If you were down in Tullamore today now and you mentioned Down, how long would it take before someone had mentioned Paddy Docherty?
Very quickly. Very quickly. Almost immediately. Yeah. Especially when I'm from Tullamore and he made a
No.
of me. You know.
Why really did you postpone the golf? Or abandon?
Well, first of all, I was given something 2 years ago in Tullamore. It wasn't for football, by the way. And Paddy was a surprise guest at it, and he came down to mine.
And there's no way
I
you'd
would have
missed
missed
it.
this. No way. No way.
Phil Riley, all the way from Offaly, an opponent of Paddy McCormick, a Paddy. And, by the way, at the Dogs and Harold's Cross last night, I met the great Paddy McCormick. He was all set to come here. He got word last night in Harold's Cross that his uncle had died in Mullingar, and he asked to pass on his very best wishes, he said, to as good a footballer as he ever saw. Paddy McCormick, the Iron Man from Road. He'd love to be here, but unfortunately he couldn't. We'll have to move on now. We'll take a jump to 1966. They had won 2 All-Irelands at this stage, and Down won back the Ulster title at the expense of Donegal, and that was a unique game because it was the first ever GAA game in Ulster to be televised live. And incidentally, the commentator in that first game of Ulster football ever to be televised was Jim McKeever. I was taught Jim McKeever and Sohanuk Coma. Jim McKeever of Derry. But Meath went on to beat Down in the All-Ireland semi-final that year, and they were a tough team. Meath teams are always regarded as being tough teams, and they sent a very worthy representative here tonight. Pat the Red Collier is here tonight. Could you stand up, Pat the Red Collier? Now, did the Red ever run into you accidentally, Paddy?
He did to Masora.
Yeah.
But I was working in McInerney's down in Dublin before that All-Ireland semi-final, and some of the boys from Dublin thought that it'd be cute to send word to Pat that I would take a hand out of him.
Yeah.
He sent word back that he'd break me 2 legs, not one.
Well, that was Meath and Down, and the Meath connection is always strong in Down, mainly through the contribution of Peter McDermott to the All-Ireland successes, and that's greatly appreciated in the Mordens, and it's a very special privilege that Peter McDermott is here tonight. Sinead, just stand up there, Peter. For the benefit of the younger people here, I can tell you that that man, Peter McDermott, was playing football for Meath and for Leinster over 60 years ago. 50 years ago to the year he refereed an All-Ireland final, and the following year he captained Meath to win an All-Ireland. That's Peter McDermott, and like others, he wouldn't miss anything. We were on 1966. But the biggest event of all so far took place in 1966 when at last the great Paddy Moe, he met his match. Someone who put the shackles on him. 1966, the year that Paddy and Angela got married. Cógádagus leis mertagaibh, 1966. Paddy, is she still the boss?
Say she is.
There's a little
she told a few fibs before this do here now.
that she won't be forgiven for.
Oh, well,
What was she telling you over the past few weeks? I would say she disappeared a few times. Did you think she was thinking of leaving?
No, she'll hardly, but
She'll hardly.
I was at the final in Newcastle.
Move in a small bit closer.
I was at the final in Newcastle, and Hugh Killen happened to say to me, we at the Abbey Lodge at Brenton Boyer. I says, no, I was not. Well, he says, some of your family was there because he mentioned your name. But I didn't strike anything with me until the night.
But
that
she was
there.
She was up to all sorts of tricks, yeah. She obviously doesn't talk in her sleep.
She doesn't, and not alone. There's quite a few knew about it that I didn't know.
Okay, that was a great year for Paddy, 1966. In the mid-60s as well, Down and Dublin had many a fine game. And already this evening I met Mickey Whelan at the Dublin hurling final in Parnell Park. Even though he's a selector with the Dublin Miners replaying the All-Ireland final in Carlow tomorrow, Mickey said, I'm going up to Paddy Docherty's night tonight. Thought Mickey Whelan and Shaw, and with him is that great Dublin player at the time, that great other Dublin player, Paddy Holden, Thon Vertical and Shaw. And the Dublin man that's willing to go anywhere to honour any footballer the great Jimmy Keaveney of a later era. Tá sé, John.